Hi folks, welcome back to our shed build project. It's a pretty simple construction, but today we're going to make a start on the framing, get that up ready for cladding in the next day or two. So stick around and let's make a start. Right, I've got on and put those post bases out now. I've got 4 of the standard post shoes, so like little bottom fixing ones, and then I had to get a couple of the ones that slot in, but it's all fine, they'll all be hidden. Getting this all square on your own, for me at least, is a little bit harder. All I did is string line parallel with the other one, that's the easy bit. But then when you want to get the corners square, you've either got to use a square like this, you've got to Pythagoras, I had 3, 4, 5, so measure 3 feet along one, 4 foot along another, and then the long measurement should be 5. But when you're on your own, trying to get a tape measure and on stakes is a bit tricky. But then of course, once you've got everything mapped out in the right place, you can go corner to corner on both of them, and they should be equal if it's a square rectangle, a rectangle with 90-degree corners. So it's one of those things, at least for me, it takes a bit of time to get right. But it's worth getting right now than messing around tomorrow when we're trying to get cladding and roofing and stuff on there. I had this bright idea of pulling everything through the hedge because there's the fence panel missing. I'm not sure how bright it was. Well, I've got 2 options. I can either make them like portal frames, which will be posts and a rafter across the top, and then stand those up and then put our sides on, or I can just build the 2 side walls, stand those up, and then put our cross braces across the top. All will become clear once I've worked out what I'm doing. Now comes the fun bit when you're working alone. It's either that or ask the girls to help me, and I'm not sure that's a wise idea. I'm going to tip it over the other side of the post bases rather than trying to drop it in first time. Hopefully it's not going to rack too much, although it might not be a bad idea. I think 2.4 on the lowest side is probably a bit high, but we can cut that down afterwards. Now this side should be a lot easier because all the post plates are at exactly the same height. Apart from that 3-metre post here, should have done this side first. One thing worth checking is, unless you've milled up the posts yourself and you're already confident in the size, make sure they're going to fit the post shoes, these bases, before you put it up. With the decking, about a quarter of the posts were oversized, and these are about 3 or 4 mil too big, so there's just no, you'd stand it up and you'd never get it in. So it's easier to plane it down now, just to take a little bit off so it'll slide straight in. this one's a bit more awkward. Right, now they're in line, I've got it braced a bit. We can see if we can persuade these in. Alright, lifting bar to the rescue. I've just taken off a bit more, hopefully it will go in now. Without springing up onto my... Anyway, that's in now. I think we can get bracing, make sure this thing doesn't fall down. Fortunately, that's my little afternoon framing over. Didn't get much done. I was hoping to get a bit more done, but that's it. Brace it across, brace it on a diagonal. It's safe for the night. Hopefully tomorrow and get the outside sorted, wrap it, batten it. It won't have a roof for a week because it's still being made, but there we go. Let's pick it up tomorrow. Right, it's a new day and we are needing to start up by getting our levels right because it's a bit tall. It's going to be a single pitch falling away from the front to the back. Our front wall needs to actually be the same height as the back one. So all we need to do is just drop that horizontal down to the height we want it, and then I'll drop the back one down. That's why I've just used screws at this point, because it was temporary. This is not going quite to plan, and I'll show you why. Whereas this side, all of the post spaces are even. And you can see that they stand off the ground by 25-30 mil, which is fine. They're all the same. Didn't think about these two. These two, you really only have the thickness of the steel plate at the bottom, which is about 2 mil. And up there, I've got one of the galvanised ones. So, without realising, I had the whole thing framed up, even. Like the horizontals were in the right places. Of course, put that end up. And everything was sent off, and when I was going around trying to correct things, I didn't even spot that, so I've corrected just about every timber on the building. And then as if you were doing any floor or joists or rafters or whatever, if there's any slight bow, I'm just going to crown it upwards, because then over time it will just kind of rest down, otherwise you end up with a big sag. And if we're going with metal roofing, it's quite obvious when you get anything like that. I'm going to brace it down that way. It's pretty much plumb going that way, but we just need to make sure that's correct, and then we can base everything else off that one. That's the back wall done now. 600 centres on the horizontals, I think that'll be alright. The board around the bottom eventually will be actually shuttering to the concrete, but if you come up 600 from there, I've got another one there, 600 again up to here, that means if we do sheet out the inside with ply or OSB, no wastage, pretty straightforward. I've gone around and levelled up. Last night I went around with the laser level, which helped, because by the time you've worked all the way around with a 6-foot spirit level, the tiniest bit of discrepancy in the bubble, and you know you're about this far off by the time you get round to the last post. Now I need to just cut a door in. I was going to go for 2 doors, but I think one's enough. So what I've done here is I've taken what will be a 33-inch door, or 838 in millimeters, and then I've just added 25mm on either side, so I can just do a bit of a lining. And then I just need to put an extra stud up this side to bring it away from this post, just so the door can open all the way back and also we've got a little bit of space to hang stuff on this wall. I've basically now got all of the structure up, apart from one thing. The whole thing is quite wobbly because we've got no diagonals in there at all. I did have some temporary ones, but nothing's fixed now. So I now need to install some bracing. And now if I was just gonna clad the whole thing in plywood, whether that's inside or outside, that would do the job for me because that would kind of stop it from racking. But what I still have is a bunch of the 4x1 or 100mm, what I used for cladding the wall. And I think that nailed on a diagonal will be exactly what we need. Now I got one end in, we can just, I'll probably use a clamp actually, make sure this is completely plumb, clamp it off, and then we can nail the lot, and then it should be easier as we go around to get that right. Almost immediately super strong that way now. By the time we put another one in coming down this way, it should be rock solid. Couple more and we should be there. One thing I have done is left all of our posts long, a bit like when I did the decking, just because, well, especially because I was designing as I went, but it now means I can cut them flush with the top of that rafter. Because this is a super lightweight roof, it's just one thin skin of steel, I'm just sitting these on our horizontal members, and then I'm going to nail them in to these posts. I might even come back in and put some bolts all the way through the post, but that's more for, you know, if it was a heavier roof or a deck, or you could notch these into the posts, it's another option. I'm probably going to put a second rafter, or flat roof joist, whatever we're calling them, on the other side of this post. So for the centre one, I probably will bolt just to sandwich this post, which means I can put a brace up here. There's probably more risk for a roof like this of uplift from the wind than there is from snow load or rain or whatever. As long as it's strong enough to walk on, then that's all we need. Last thing I want to do before we wrap it is I'm just going to nail off all these beams, a bit like we did on the top. So our post, although it is nice and plumb and we've checked that all the way around, it's not perfectly flat and straight itself because it's just a rough sawn fence post. So by putting a stud in to then put our door lining against, it just means that we're more likely to get a nice straight piece. And it doesn't really matter if there's a little gap between these two, providing this one's plumb. rather than battle on and finish the membrane and the battening and the cladding now, I'm going to save that for the next video. We're at a point now where pretty much everything for the frame is done, apart from some extra purlins to go in for the roof, and I'm going to wait until the roof sheets turn up so I can make sure they're correctly centered. Right, there's lots you might do differently if this was a barn or a big agricultural building, but for what we need, it's strong enough. We've got 6 pads in the ground, which we did in the first stage. They're all level, and then there's post shoe at the bottom of each, 2 different types, these ones being the better or preferred ones for me at least. And then we've got our horizontal 100mm beams. Now they are 600 centres. As far as the bracing went, that was kind of key. Unfortunately, you've got to make a feature of it, although if we do ply line and insulate, these will be concealed, but it's not quite as ornate as if we were doing a mortise and tenon timber frame, and we could do those nice big wind braces, just simply because you need them to be quite long here, and you really need them to be top to bottom like I've done here, which is fine. I mean, again, it's a shed, so those bracing pieces are really stopping the racking in all the directions, but I've used the offcuts of the fence post just to put in a brace this way, and it's not huge, it really should be lower, but of course you're going to bang your head, and it's more of a bonus. We've already got the bracing on all the other corners. And then our door in this corner, I might need to drop the top of the door a little bit. I'm just going to wait until I've worked out how high floor levels are. You can see I've got to build up the floor level a bit this end, and I've just, as you saw me do this morning, cut and put the extra pieces in there, so our lining will go straight onto here, and I'll probably try and make up a lining that's deeper or all the way out beyond the cladding, and that way it gives me something to finish the cladding against. Anyway, it's all a bit of an experiment, not built this way before. It's more of an agricultural barn type feel to it, but it's less groundworks, especially if you don't need a floor in a shed. You just need to pour 6 little lumps of concrete and you're good to go. This shed here I built 10 years ago and not really done much to it apart from move it several times, and you can see this is more of a traditional mess. You see at the back there, I just made it up in panel form, a bit like you'd buy a shed. So they're what are they? They are 600 centres at the back, and then 2 walls and just a simple pent roof. And in all honesty, that would have been absolutely adequate for what we're doing here. I really didn't need these chunky walls, but it's probably not a dissimilar cost to it. I'm not using tongue and groove, which bumps the price up a bit. So next step is going to be to put the membrane on here, vertical battens, and then the feather edge, which I'm going for. I've got some nice cedar, untreated but nice western red cedar, which for some reason was quite cheap in comparison to other cladding options, you know, versus the pressure treated, and I think it'll be fine. It's really well covered and sheltered here anyway. Anything I've used in this video, tools, bits and bobs like that, I will stick in the link below. But that's it. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.